Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, helping homeowners trade out old windows for modern, energy-efficient windows with curb appeal. Estimates at callmosby.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Jonathan Ahl. Nearly 80 years ago, a stray cat in St. Louis made history and found his forever home by wandering into the right place at the right time. The story of Mr. Silver is the subject of a children's book by Kate Klise, and this month it's now a classical composition inspired by the tale that will get its world premiere in St. Louis. The Metropolitan Orchestra of St. Louis will perform How Mr. Silver Stole the Show alongside a concurrent reading of the children's book by the same name. Kate Klise joins me now to talk about it. Kate, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
Also joining us is the Mizzou professor whose composition inspired Kate's book, Stefan Freund. Welcome very much. You're on the line.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And the principal conductor of the Metropolitan Orchestra of St. Louis, Roger Kaza, is also here. Hi, Roger.
Hi, how are you?
Kate, we're going to start with you. How did you discover Mr. Silver's story?
This was back in 2021, and I was actually working on another book that was not, I kind of hit a brick wall, and I did what all writers do when we can't write. I was reading, which is a lot easier than writing. And I was reading, it was in November 2021. You know how they sometimes do stories from the archives? And it was, 70-some years ago. The headline was, "A stray cat struts into the St. Louis Cat Show and becomes a winner." And I knew 2 paragraphs into it, I knew I wanted to write a book about it. It's exactly the kind of story I love because it's on its face, it's a story about a cat show, but there are layers to it. It's 1947, St. Louis.
So the cat wandered into the show.
Wandered into the hotel 2 days before the pedigreed cat show. Okay. And the kitchen staff was charmed by this scrappy cat. And our heroine, Marcella Duffy, the hostess of the Hamilton Hotel, decided to take her own hairbrush and groom him and wash him up and enter him in the contest. And then he won 2 blue ribbons. And it made headlines across the country.
So when you read that, what was the process to turn that into a children's story? And maybe some of the liberties that you had to take to try to pad out the story and give a little more structure to it?
Well, there wasn't much. I mean, there was probably 2 or 3 paragraphs. So, and there were no kids in the story. So I had to give the chef at the hotel a daughter. Mm-hmm. And, I invented dialogue. I sent it to my sister, my illustrator sister in California, and she immediately threw herself into 1947 St. Louis. So I wrote it quickly, completely abandoned the other project, and sent it off to my editor at Macmillan, who had fortunately just adopted a COVID kitten. So the timing was right.
So 1947 St. Louis, you said there were other layers. What were some of those other layers, and can you kind of paint us a picture
well,
of that?
I mean, think about it. It's right after the war. America, on one level, is feeling victorious. People come back. We have a lot of problems to deal with in St. Louis and elsewhere. St. Louis is segregated like every other major city in America. But 1947 is also the year Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier. And things are starting to change. And we have this woman who's at the center of the story who, she can't change everything, but she can make a point with this cat. So I don't know if she's trying to if she did it on a lark or if she was trying to paint a broader picture with this.
So at some level, it's an underdog story.
Exactly.
And a story of someone who is overlooked getting their attention.
And someone who's an outsider, which I think is something we grapple with in St. Louis and as a country. Like, do we welcome outsiders in? Do we keep them locked outside? Do we let them enter the contest, or, do we celebrate them?
Stefan, how did you get involved? How did this children's book become something that ended up being a composition for you?
This project we've been talking about since I wrote a horn concerto for Roger Kaza and the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra in 2021. So it's been in the back of our minds, and the timing seemed to be right this past year, and we began the project. I got a wonderful list of guidelines from Kate and Sarah, and that really helped me develop the themes and the form of the piece.
I want to listen to just a little excerpt of this so that our audience can get just a little bit of a flavor of what the piece sounds like. So, Stefan, that I hear some Gershwin influence. I hear some jazzy stuff in there. What kind of led you to the harmonic and melodic language that you used when you composed this piece?
Well, similarly, like Kate said, that Sarah indulged herself in everything that was 1940s St. Louis. I thought about the music that would be happening at that time, and certainly the blues was very impactful, and I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, so the blues is very important to me. So I thought that would be a nice undertone that we could develop through the piece as really setting the scene and the atmosphere for the setting of the book. So how did you decide to convert? Is the piece programmatic? Do you try to follow the plot and the storyline of the story, or were you more going for what the kids call vibes these days? Yeah, so the piece is for narrator and orchestra, so we have the entire text presented. So the music is really accompanying the text. Certainly there are interludes where we'll go off and hear what the cat show sounds like, or what the competition sounds like, what the kitchen sounds like. Certainly the characters have their themes, but basically it's just kind of like movie music, if you think of it that way, that there's dialogue going on, there are events happening, and while you're imagining these things in your head, you're also hearing this music.
So, Stefan, I'm thinking about, famous pieces for narrator and orchestra, like Lincoln Portrait, or I'm thinking about the long history of compositions that build on children's stories, Peter and the Wolf, Amal and the Night Visitors. Were any of those kinds of pieces inspiration for you to approach writing this?
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned them all, because I just conducted 2 performances of it in December. So I don't think there are any direct Amal references, but certainly that language, that expression is part of my language. And the themes for the characters are not as literally connected to an instrument as Peter and the Wolf, for example, or Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra, but certainly they have an instrumental identity to them. So I think you will pick up on, okay, well, the woodwinds, they represent this character. The brass, they represent this character. So there are those kind of connections.
Kate, I'd like to ask you about your sister's illustrations. Because as with every good children's book, the illustrations are super important.
Yes.
And the illustrations are beautiful. They're rich. They are of the 1947 period, but they also feel contemporary. I'm just kind of wondering about the collaboration and how you got those two things together.
Well, she really tapped into the St. Louis Historical Society. She immediately tried to figure out, okay, what was the Hamilton Hotel? What did it look like? So she uses a lot of historical photographs. I don't know that we've mentioned, but these visuals are going to be projected as the concert is being performed. So people are going to get a sense of the illustrations. It's not going to be animated, but kind of Ken Burns style, zooming in. She just has a great sense of, as she's Googling 1947 wallpaper, I'm also researching like what was on the menu of these kind of hotels. So it's like, cream diced chicken. So we try to be factual up to as far as we can be.
Roger, how did you and the Metropolitan Orchestra of St. Louis get involved in being the world premiere for this work?
Well, I've known Kate for a long time, and I've worked with Stefan. as he mentioned just a minute ago, he wrote me a gorgeous horn concerto, which we played for the Missouri Bicentennial, and it incorporated a Voyageur tune, which were some of the earliest travelers in Missouri. So I knew his affinity for Missouri and for the music here. And opportunity came up. The Metropolitan Orchestra gives basically 3 winter concerts a year. And as far as I know, since I've been conducting them, we've not done a world premiere. And I thought, wow, if we can pull this off, this will be amazing. And so we structured the whole concert around this piece. So it's kind of on the storytelling side, very family friendly. Starts with the Mother Goose Suite of Ravel, which is obviously a bunch of fairy tales, and then concludes with Hindemith's symphonic metamorphosis on themes of Weber. And while not telling a verbal story, he's kind of reimagining these musical tales from a century before by his predecessor. So it's just a fun concert. Does it probe the depths? I don't know. Everyone can decide on that themselves, but it's definitely an accessible concert.
Is there anything particularly challenging or different about conducting a world premiere and doing a piece that has spoken word and visual elements going on with what you're trying to do musically?
Well, yes, it's quite a 3-ring circus, and Stefan did not spare us any wiggle room. His narration is quite a bit of back and forth. So whereas a piece like Lincoln Portrait or Peter and the Wolf, which you mentioned, they're large chunks of text and then large sections of music, there's some very intricate back and forth. So he's going to be doing some of the narrating, as well as Sarah Fensky, who's going to kind of co-narrate for it.
Friend of the show, Sarah Fensky.
Yes.
It's nice to give a shout out to her. So are there any, maybe nerves isn't the right word, but you don't have the history of listening to how other orchestras and other conductors have approached this piece. Is it different doing something for the first time that you don't have that history to kind of go back on?
Absolutely. I've been studying the score for weeks and kind of imagining what it would sound like, but until last Tuesday, we really had no idea what it actually sounded like. And of course, it'll be different when we're in our final venue, the 560, and have some nice reverb and all the instruments are in the right place. But the orchestra loved it from the very first bars. They could tell, oh, this is going to be a nice experience to play this. And tonight we're rehearsing it with the narrators, so it'll be even more fulfilling.
We need to take a quick break, but we will be back with Kate Klise, Roger Kaza, and Stefan Freund. We'll talk more about this piece coming up on St. Louis on the Air.
Support comes from Gemma, architects, planners, and designers seeking to bring joy to their clients and communities. Details at gemastl.com.
Welcome back. We're talking about the children's book and orchestral composition that tell the story of a stray cat in 1940s St. Louis who went from being a stray to a first-place winner in a prestigious cat show. The performance and concurrent reading of How Mr. Silver Stole the Show will take place Sunday, May 17th at Washington University's E. Desmond Lee Concert Hall, Sunday, May 17th. With me to talk about it, author Kate Klise, composer and Mizzou professor Stefan Freund, and principal conductor of the Metropolitan Orchestra of St. Louis, Roger Kaza. Now, I want to go back to we were talking about the illustrations that go along with the book. Because they're so rich and interesting. And Stefan, did the illustrations of the book inspire or inform your textures and your harmonic language that you were going for?
Absolutely. And in particular, we have all these different varieties of cats. And you can also see some of the chaos of the scenes. So I really seized upon that in the musical language. So you'll hear a fancy cat waltz, for example. You'll hear the chaos of the cat show. You'll hear the scrappiness, as Roger said, of Mr. Silver, the main character. So yeah, definitely, it's great to have Kate's words, but also to have Sarah's images inform my mind and think about the scene, the colors. And it's wonderful that we're going to have those projections with the performance so that the audience will have not just the words that I had in my mind, but also the images in my mind as I was writing the music.
Kate, have you ever done anything like this where your work was put in musical form?
I'm actually working on an opera for young audiences right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm interested in taking stories to another level. I think it's a fun. I think collaboration is always fun. People like Stefan and Roger see things often in these stories that I don't see. It's like working with my sister. I mean, the illustrations always bring another level, but it's fun to take things to it.
I want to ask a little bit more about the story. How did Mr. Silver win? Was he just that good, or was there some hype and lore about, hey, the stray is here?
There were 2 blue ribbons left after this long and exhausting day of all these pedigreed cats, and Miss Marcella Duffy took the cat to the front, and the judges are like, where's the paperwork? What kind of ancestry does this cat have? And she says, I don't know. Who knows where he's from? And I think he was just undeniably charming. There's the headlines that spread over throughout the country where the headlines were great. It's like no pedigree, just charm, and alley cat, steals the show. So
What happened to Mr. Silver afterwards?
he was adopted by the hotel hostess.
Okay.
She took him home.
And do we know anything about his life afterwards?
The next year, he went back and he won 6 blue ribbons.
Wow! So there's something.
I know.
There's something really special
Yes,
about this
yes.
cat. If you could go back in time and if you could ask Marcella Duffy a question, what would it be?
I think it would be, was this something she, in the book I say, what happened next is a mystery. Maybe it was because it had been a long and exhausting day. Maybe it was because she knew it was the right thing to do. Was she doing it on a lark, or was she trying to say something? Because think of it. She's a single woman, Miss Marcella Duffy, middle-aged, 1940s. She's a bit of an outsider herself. Everybody working in the kitchen. Is she... I don't know. That would be my question for her.
Do either of you have cats?
Not at the moment.
But you have in the...
I grew up with cats and
Okay.
kittens.
I have a barn. I don't have any cats I feed. Let me put it that way. But
Okay.
I think there's a barn cat that I have right now.
So is there something universal about cats that you hope this story appeals to?
I think a good children's book appeals to, kids love an animal story because I think kids feel they can identify with a small, defenseless creature with no money and no power. I think the kids, that's the access point for the kids. And I think the adult reader and listener sees 1947, and that's a whole nother layer for them.
Mm-hmm. Maybe can we talk a little bit about any social commentary that you're trying to make in this book too? Because it's a little subtle because it is a children's book, but it's definitely there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I'm not a big one for messages in books.
It belongs to the reader.
I think it belongs. I was reading it in New York last week, and a girl said, "I think Mr. Silver is the ghost of Miss Duffy's husband who was killed in World War II." And I said, well, maybe. Could be. I leave it to the reader to decide what it means. But I like a hopeful story. I like a story where where people do the right thing, when it comes to the outsider, and they let the outsider in.
Roger, I'd like to ask you a little bit about programming this piece. And so the Metropolitan Orchestra of St. Louis, what is the step that this orchestra is taking by doing a world premiere, and kind of how does it fit into your musical vision for the organization?
Well, this orchestra, as some of you may know, was formed around 14 or 15 years ago by Alan Larson out of the Webster University milieu. And I took it over, I think, about 3 years ago. And I've just wanted to give our players the widest possible variety of repertoire. These are the top freelancers in St. Louis. Many of them either play extra with the St. Louis Symphony, or some of them actually are retired members of the symphony. And they don't get to play serious repertoire on a regular basis the way we do in the symphony. So I program a lot of mainstream music, Brahms symphonies, Beethoven symphonies, but I try to branch out and do some more 20th century works. Last year we did the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra, which was quite a challenge, and everyone loved that. This year, as I mentioned, we're finishing with the Hindemith Symphonic Metamorphosis, written around the same time as the Bartók. So I just thought this program lended itself to either 20th century or more recent works. So, and it's a short program, probably an hour and a half, so it's very accessible to families. And the thing I love about Mr. Silver is the orchestra, it's not necessarily just accompanying the story. It's really kind of part of the story. It's telling the story. And I think that's very exciting because everyone feels like they're part of that storytelling.
You are maybe a little bit better known being the principal horn in the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. What musical itch do you get to scratch by being a conductor, and how is that different for you than being a horn player?
Oh, well, thanks for asking. Yes, I studied conducting in my 20s. I was working with Leonard Slatkin when I first came to the St. Louis Symphony, and I had various orchestras over the years. I still just love physically producing music on the horn. There's something very tactile and physical about it that it's hard to give up. But conducting is so much more global. You're looking at the entire picture. You're deciding the tempos. You're deciding the balances. You're hopefully helping musicians play together like it was chamber music. And as an orchestral musician, I've examined hundreds, if not thousands, of conductors and made notes of who's helping and who is not, and hopefully that's been a good education. But it's very humbling because if they don't play together, it's probably your fault. Don't blame them. You probably gave them a vague cue or something. So I'm definitely learning on the job, but we have a lot of fun together. We only have 3 rehearsals for each show, so we have to work fast. But again, they're all professionals with the exception of a handful of students. We usually bring in about 4 or 5 students, and we call it the Share a Stand program. And these students, some of them are as young as 12 years old. They take the music very seriously, and we mentor them on it, and they sit with us, and it's a thrill for them.
Stefan, I have a question for you and Roger, but I'll start with you. Do you think that there is an impetus and a desire and maybe even an obligation for classical musicians to try to figure out ways to make sure that they are staying relevant to kids and developing the next generation of audiences for this music?
Absolutely. It's really an important part of all of our missions, whether it be composers, performers, presenters. We have to make sure that we continue to build an audience for what we do. Obviously, there's a business aspect to that, but there's also a more global aesthetic aspect of that we want to share this wonderful art form that we have with future generations and let it continue. And the work that we're doing, as we mentioned, with having these projections, having narration, having this 3-ring circus, as Roger called it, hopefully will appeal to a wider audience. And you're seeing that with the St. Louis Symphony doing all of these movie music presentations. I went to Jurassic Park a few years ago, so I just wanted to check it out, see what it's like. And it's just an incredibly diverse audience that you see at those performances.
Stefan, I didn't ask you earlier. Do you have a cat?
I have a giant 95-pound golden retriever and a bunny. No cats, but I did grow up with cats.
Okay, because I'm just wondering if observing cats and thinking about how cats act, did that play any role in your composition process?
Yeah, and I have a story actually about composing and a cat that I can't get into now, but just know that, yeah, I have a fair amount of experience with my own cats, which definitely, as you know, cats have a lot of personality. I'm a big believer in 9 lives. My cats definitely had 9+ lives, and they love to tangle too.
I feel like I do need to give a shout out to my cats.
I was going to say, you must have a cat.
Yeah, Knox and Miko, who, if they're listening, why can't you be more like Mr. Silver? I mean, it's right there for you guys. Can you stop whatever you're doing and just be more like Mr. Silver? So, Kate, now that you're coming to the closure of this, seeing your book become music, and you mentioned that you're working on an opera too. Is this process changed the way you write or the way that you think about stories and what their life is in addition to the page?
I think it's reinforced the idea that stories work best when they do have this layering, that there's something for the younger audience. I mean, when you're writing a children's book, you're always writing for two audiences, the child who's experiencing it and the adult who's reading it to them or with them. And I like looking for stories that have that various interpretations and various levels. So I guess the only difference is that I'm now more keenly on the hunt for more stories like that.
So are you going to be looking for more newspaper archives and seeing?
I've gotten so many of we've done 35 books, and I would say at least 10 of them come from newspaper stories.
That story, in addition to the St. Louis coverage, it made national headlines, kind of like the going viral of its day. And do you think that gave gravity to this and attention to this that ended up making it something that could be a children's book and a piece of music?
I think people were hungry then, as they are now, for these stories where people do the right thing and where kindness kind of wins.
A question for all three of you to close. What do you hope the audience gets out of your performance?
I would say joy, wonder, just a happy, warm feeling.
And pride in St. Louis. It's a St. Louis happy story, too.
Stefan?
Yeah, those are wonderful words. I just want the audience to feel that they're part of the story, to feel that emotion, to laugh, to cry, to be along for the ride with us.
The performance of How Mr. Silver Stole the Show takes place Sunday, May 17th at Washington University's E. Desmond Lee Concert Hall. More information can be found on the Metropolitan Orchestra of St. Louis's website, moslmusic.org. Kate Klise, children's book author, Roger Kaza, principal conductor of the orchestra, and Stefan Freund, the composer. Thank you all very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This episode was produced by Emily Woodbury.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, and my colleague Jessica Rogan and I are your daily hosts of the Gateway newsletter. We meet with the editors in the STLPR newsroom every weekday to bring you the top local stories of the day in a quick and easy 6-minute read by 6 a.m. In an age of overwhelm, it's a refreshing, thoughtful take on the news day, if we do say so ourselves. Fine-tune your daily news habit with the Gateway newsletter. Subscribe at stlpr.org/gateway.